This video aims to uncover the beauty within one of the preludes by Claude Debussy that I cherish the most, The Girl with the Flaxen Hair, or by its original title, La Fille aux Cheveux de Lin. The main focus of this tutorial is to reveal the pianistic and musical elements inherent to this piece, and discuss how to approach them. We will work on producing a colorful tonal palette, mastering transparent voicing, pedaling with distinct intention, and a delicate approach to temporal expressions prescribed by the composer. Let's begin with the first melodic line. Debussy characterizes it as very calm and gently expressive. He also offers to avoid strictness in tempo. Thus, all the essential elements converge to create a dreamy and somewhat indeterminate beginning. As I engage the keys, my fingertips contact with their undersides, and I maintain a flatter hand shape, which you might have seen in some of my videos on pieces by Chopin. But here's what I do differently. I generally position my wrist slightly higher, with lots of freedom, as if playing in a low-gravity environment. Decreasing the resistance results in a lighter and more transparent tone. This technique delivers a distinct, delicate, yet vibrant sound, which I frequently employ when interpreting music by Debussy. Let's get back to the melody. Visualize drawing subtle half circles with the wrist, while ensuring utmost flexibility. After this somewhat uncertain start, a harmonically reassuring motif comes into play. We want to execute two bouncing movements to play this motif effectively. Engaging a downward wrist motion naturally accentuates each chord, while an upward wrist motion with the other notes organically lightens the melody. But here's a twist. The deeper you dive, the bigger the emphasis. As you might envision, I go deep into the keys to give notable emphasis to the G-flat marked with a tenuto, and for a softer stress of the subsequent G-flat, I employ a more restrained diving motion. In both cases, I lift the wrist while playing the other notes. The remaining notes are pretty gentle, and this is also valid for the left hand, which functions as an extension of the right hand's lower layer. The latter portion of the phrase takes on a choral character, and here's my preferred voicing approach. Firstly, it is crucial to ensure the prominence of the melody in the right hand, which involves emphasizing the upper voice while keeping the others quiet. The left hand is mirroring the right hand. I will make the bass notes stand out and play the rest quietly. The trickier aspect lies in playing these chords legato. However, by striving to connect the melody and the bass line as seamlessly as possible, we can craft an illusion of continuity within these chords, making them sound more connected, translucent, and colorful, even with soft dynamics. Let me outline my pedal usage for the first phrase. I press the sustain pedal halfway through the single note sequence. I repress it with the first chord, then repress it with the next chord, and once more with the D flat. For a seamless connection with the subsequent bar's eighth notes, I release the pedal and all the notes except for the D flat. This preserves the melody without interruption while creating a pause in the lower layer. Also, to prevent a sudden gap right before transitioning into the choral section, I lightly touch the pedal while playing the G flat. As I arrive at measure 5, I refresh the pedal with each chord, and in measure 6, with each beat. Feel free to vary the depth when pressing the pedal, tailoring it to your preference and to the acoustics of the venue where you are playing. Let's play the entire first phrase, and then move on to the next section. The second phrase opens with the same melody as the first, but now a choral texture that paints an altered impression is accompanying. According to my imagination, this harmonic addition reflects the curious side of the girl, the main character in this period. Initially, I highlight the upper notes in the first 4 chords. Following that, I keep emphasizing the upper notes, but introduce the new bass motif with considerably more volume. This approach aims to land a broader resonance, similar to the choral section of the previous phrase. The true challenge lies in maintaining the clear voicing of the accompaniment layer, despite the melody taking on the most prominent role when all the layers converge. The aim is to sustain the essential notes in the accompaniment layer while highlighting the melodic line. Here is my suggestion. I transition to the 5th finger with the D flat in the melody, effectively securing my hand's position for the subsequent 4 notes. By shifting from the 2nd to the 3rd finger on the B flat, I create a comfortable setup to sustain that note without disrupting the flow of the melody. At this juncture, I play the E flat using my right hand, rather than employing only the left hand for the remainder of the line. This adjustment results in a smoother, more melodic, and comfortable execution of this passage. I suggest practicing these 2 bars without using the pedal, allowing you to hear each note's voicing and duration distinctly. Following Debussy's marks, we will start decreasing the dynamics in the initial measure and then gradually stretch the tempo in the next one. In this section, a new melodic line comes to the forefront, and my approach is to phrase it in harmony with its direction. The dynamics of the composer essentially align with this concept. Within these 2 bars, we can display the enthusiasm of the curious girl and her immediate contrasting reaction. In the lower layer, I will emphasize the bass note, given its extended duration, and also stress the final quarter note in that layer, marked with tenuto. I suggest preserving a gentle quality in both the middle layer and the remaining voices of the lower layer to craft a harmonious foundation that allows the melody to truly shine. As for the arpeggio chord, played with the right hand, I started immediately after the D flat in the melody and played swiftly enough to conclude before the E flat. The chord in the left hand enters simultaneously with the E flat, so right after the arpeggio chord. Here we must execute a specific pedaling to play accurately. As we maintain the bass note, we must also play another chord simultaneously with the left hand. If you simply sustain the pedal, the entire chord will keep resonating. However, our objective is to extend only the bass note. Here's my approach. Keep the sustain pedal throughout measure 12, and as you reach the end of the bar, briefly release it while keeping the bass note and letting go of the unnecessary notes, and press it again. Once more. Voila. Speaking of which, here is what I do with pedaling within measures 7 to 13. In bar 7, I begin the new melody without the pedal, to infuse a sense of freshness. However, I delicately tap it during the subsequent C to ensure a smooth transition between bar 7 and 8. After that, I adjust the pedal in harmony with the accompanying layers, changing it with each chord. In measures 10 to 11, I apply a subtle pedal touch to add a colorful atmospheric quality. And in measures 12 and 13, I implement the specific pedaling technique I previously explained. Let's hear the entire section. A graceful melody wanders around in the upcoming 2 measures and reaches the little culmination. Perhaps it pictures the sun unexpectedly emerging through the clouds. I like to shape the top layer in parallel with its direction. Given the current dynamics, I propose keeping the dynamics adjustments to a minimum in the first bar and continuing with a modest crescendo in the next one. I play the 8th notes with a subtle emphasis, while considering the preceding 16th notes as a step toward them. Preserving a legato articulation until reaching the last motif, I lightly emphasize the C marked with a tenuto and stretch the timing. As we often encounter in this prelude, the secondary layer cooperated with both hands in the first two bars. To create a dialogue with the upper melody, I like emphasizing the right-hand line and treating the left hand's double notes as its shadow. Following a delicate emphasis on the G-flat, I play the last measure with a soft touch. That requires a special effort, considering the rapid jump from the bass to the chord in piano dynamic. Nonetheless, by doing so, we can highlight the main melody delicately. The charm of the subsequent two bars, my favorite spot in this piece, could effortlessly captivate anyone's sympathy. Let's strive for a tender sound with finger legato in the upper line, but still ensure that it breathes at the starting and ending points of the slurs. Given the composer's instructions, let's maintain the lightness and gradually diminish the dynamics. Of course, I play the last chord with a brighter upper voice. As you can envision, I soften the other layers as much as possible to set an atmosphere that complements the naive melody in the right hand. I apply the pedal on every beat in the first measure. I double press it within the first beat for clarity in the next one. Then I sustain the pedal throughout bar 16. And finally, I change it on the first and second beats in measures 17 and 18. Now let's play through this 5-bar section and move on to the next one. Debussy introduces a touch of excitement in the following section, marked as un peu animé, implying a livelier character. He shapes the first three measures with a repeating pattern formed by two types of motifs. The first type serves as a resolution. It connects the previous section with the new one and reappears twice as a joint between the following measures. The second type initially appears as a single 16th note line, and later repeats twice more, played in unison by both hands. Its role is to act as a bridge between the motifs of the first type. Let's begin with the second motif type. Even though the first instance doesn't explicitly call for a crescendo, I suggest applying a little one. Think of it as a secret crescendo. Following that, let's increase the dynamics more noticeably with each motif. Envision tracing an imaginary half ellipse from left to right with your wrists to improve the melodic quality, ensuring a silkier legato. For a natural execution of the other motifs, let's concentrate solely on the melody first. Start with a wrist dive, continue with an upward wrist motion, and conclude with a subtle bounce. Apply the same technique to the next motif, as well as to the left hand. Incorporating the other voices can be tricky. To expedite your progress, I recommend the following practice routine. Start from the last B-flat within the 16-note passage. While holding this note, emphasize the melodic layer and play the other notes softly. The next challenge involves both hands doing the same simultaneously. Start by practicing with the right hand, then the left, and finally integrate both hands. Well, it's time to link all the motifs. Let's do it slowly. Each of these three bars begins in E-flat major. However, Debussy takes a surprising turn at the end of bar 21 and introduces a C-flat major chord. After this most significant climax in the piece, he begins alleviating the tension by gradually reducing both dynamics and tempo in the following two measures. Here I highlight the starting points of the first two motifs, featuring chords with a tenuto. This emphasis is achieved by bouncing the wrist and lingering longer on these spots. Let's first play the melodic layer. Following the emphasis on the start, let's delicately sharpen the last note containing a staccato before jumping to the next motif. Now, to comfortably bring out the melody, let's introduce the second layer with a soft touch. The upcoming motifs don't feature a tenuto, so I'll minimize wrist bouncing at the starting points and avoid excessive lingering. Also, let's start to slow down the tempo from the end of the third motif, in line with the composer's instruction. In this measure, where the dynamics are even softer, transparently voicing these motifs poses a bigger problem. Nevertheless, as before, let's keep the melody more pronounced, and the second layer lighter. The left hand doesn't contain a melody. Still, I recommend emphasizing the top voice. Despite following a dynamics progression similar to the one in the right hand, let's keep it slightly softer to prevent overshadowing the main melody. Let's put both hands together. Here's my pedaling approach for bars 19 to 23. In the initial three measures, I sustain the first two beats with one pedal and change it on the third beat. However, given the lower register can easily sound muddy, I will press the pedal halfway to prevent that in bar 19. Then, fully press it in the following two measures. From the culmination point, I will change the pedal with each chord to present a transparent picture of the relationship between harmony and melody. Alright, now let's play the entire section marked with the tempo indication, un peu animé. Here we go back to the main tempo. These graceful chords, harmoniously moving in parallel directions, perhaps represent the bells resonating from a church. Debussy paints a tranquil and almost therapeutic 4 bars, setting the stage for the final appearance of the opening theme. Perhaps the farewell of the girl with the flaxen hair. Maybe it's time to go home, or to the next adventure. To capture the character of the bells, I sustain consistent timing until the end of bar 27. Like a metronome, an unusual thing to hear in this channel, and voice each note in these chords uniformly. This sequence comprises 2 passages. Debussy designates the first under a single slur and the second under 2 slurs. The reason for that is the last motif in the second passage contains a different articulation and timing. We start with a very gentle first passage, which concludes with a subtle crescendo. The second passage asks for more volume and incorporates a more pronounced crescendo. Then comes the final motif. Let's linger on these chords and patiently allow the sound wave to emerge and fade away. When playing the whole sequence, separate these 3 components by taking tiny breaths where the slurs end, without compromising the general timing. Now we revisit the beautiful theme from the opening. This time it is accompanied by a little melodic motif, hinted by Debussy at measures 14 and 33, and possibly at 23. While it may not be an apparent detail for many listeners, bringing out this motif could evoke a sense of familiarity in their subconscious. Here is what to do. Since the melody is shared between both hands in the middle layer, seamlessly transitioning from the left hand to the right hand is a must. Next, our attention should be on voicing this motif, not by highlighting the melodic line per se, but rather by playing the other notes softly. Remember that the overall dynamic is pianissimo. We can craft a warm ambience by including the other voices with a delicate touch, evoking a sense of affection. However, precise pedaling is needed here to fulfill the composer's intention. Specifically, the lower C in the bass has to sustain for 3 bars, while the other voice is only for 2. Hence, we need to refresh the pedal as soon as we release all the keys except the bass note, and immediately proceed to the motif in the middle layer. I recommend subtly emphasizing the bass note to ensure its presence throughout its entire duration. Here, the melody is even more delicate than the opening of the prelude. By slightly lifting your wrist with the forearm, reduce the weight of your hand, and strive for maximum relaxation while playing. Let's bring all the layers together. Let's clarify the pedaling for measures 24 to 32. I press the pedal halfway and generally use it for longer durations in the first 4 bars. I only refresh it when playing the quarter note chords. Additionally, from bar 27 onward, I press the pedal fully and change it as I detailed earlier to sustain the bass note and maintain translucence. Finally, I conclude the section by keeping it throughout each bar. Depending on the acoustics, I may gradually lift the pedal at bar 32 to prevent excessive blurring and to prepare for a fresh start in the next section. Before moving on to the final measures, let's listen to this entire section. I will make a dialogue between the layers in the following 2 measures, similar to bar 14. With Debussy's suggestion of whispering and gradually fading in mind, let's climb with the double notes towards the night sky. After playing the final chord, allow only 2 of the countless stars to delicately twinkle. Regarding the pedaling, I recommend changing the pedal on each beat in measures 33 and 34, sustaining it for the entire duration of measure 35, and holding it until the end of the piece. Before I play the entire prelude, I would like to share a musical message. There are clear instructions in the scores on what and how to play. Nevertheless, feel free to embrace a spontaneous approach after mastering this piece. The hours spent practicing, searching, decision-making, and refining your expectations got ingrained in your understanding. And this investment will guide you regardless. However, a genuinely pure interpretation should also be intuitive and respond to the moment, surroundings, and emotions. Well, I guess this is exactly what I will try right now. Here it comes. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please show your support by giving it a like. I will see you in the next one.